So good morning, everyone. So let me begin with a warm welcome to all of you guys to join us in this Diets for People with Parkinson's webinar. You probably noticed that this is not the first time IMU collaborating with Mpda in organizing webinars. Firstly, we would like to thank Ms. Sarah, the president of Mpda, and also our supervisor, Dr. Sagi, for giving us the chance to make this happen. And we are very excited meeting you all and looking forward to delve deeper on this topic. So let me quickly introduce myself and my team members. I'm Jui Sze, and here we have Jia Niylesha, Farheen, and Bing Hao. We are all third-year pharmacy students, and Jia and I will be the MC for this webinar, okay? So before I proceed, here is some housekeeping rules to ensure the event going smoothly. So upon your entry to the webinar, your screen sharing audio will be automatically switched off. And during the webinar, if you have any questions for the speaker, you can always feel free to post your question through the Zoom Q&A chat box. And if you need any assistance, please approach our committees that has the COMM in the usernames. And last but not least, do remember to fill in the feedback form at the end of the session. We would really appreciate that. And for your information, the webinar will be 1 hour and 30 minutes long. And as illustrated here, we will be having a total of 40 minutes of the talk and followed by 20 minutes of the Q&A session. And we will be using the Zoom as our Q&A platform. So feel free to ask any questions or any doubts that you have or share your thoughts with us. And we are so honored to have Miss Sarah here to join us and share with us on this topic today. She is an IMU graduate of the Dietetics with Nutrition degree. She is currently a freelance dietitian under the name Dietitian Hasanah. She mainly shares her content on the social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and also her own website. For the past year, she has served over 100 plus clients and has been able to help them improving in their health and well-being. Her client disease profile range from diabetes, Parkinson's, PCOS, cancer, chronic kidney diseases, and so on, all of which saw a significant improvement in at least one of the monitoring parameters. And her passion lies within reinventing the concept of healthy eating in the management of various diseases and conditions. So without further ado, Ms. Hasanah, the floor is yours.
All right, okay, sorry, I wasn't able to unmute, only the host is able to unmute me. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining, and I hope that I'll be able to share some very useful knowledge with everyone today. So just give me a moment to share my screen. While that, I wanted to say that during my presentation, there's a lot that I'm going to cover. So if it's too much for you, or if I'm too fast, please do stop me. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box. Another thing that I wanted to say is that when it comes to talking about Parkinson's, or even about nutrition specifically, right? It's a very broad topic, and I could have hours and hours of workshops to talk about every single element. So I'm trying to, as much as possible, condense most of the information that I have within this 40 minutes, especially knowing that you guys may have a lot of questions. So if it's too much, do tell me, but please don't worry. Maybe, we have another opportunity to have more in-depth sessions in the future based on your questions. So this is just a general overview of a guideline on how I would talk about Parkinson's with my patients as well. All right, so good morning. I believe they've already introduced me. My name is Dietitian Hasanah, and today I'll be sharing on living with Parkinson's disease from a dietitian's perspective. So let's start off with what exactly is Parkinson's disease. I'm sure all of you have already, you're already very well aware of what's going on, and your doctors may have explained, or you've already read about it. But the general idea here is that there's a gradual loss of cells in the specific part of the brain. So this specific part of the brain that you can see here is actually in charge of producing something called dopamine, which I'm sure you guys know as well, because I got a question about dopamine foods. So dopamine is something that transmits signals between the two regions of our brain to coordinate activities. So you can see in this picture here, this is how our body actually transmit the signal. So there is something that is supposed to pass through to the other side. But in people with Parkinson's, this passing through is the issue because this neurotransmitter dopamine is not there. So if I were to give you an analogy, you can imagine as though there are five people here. And this person in this red box is trying to send a message to these five people, but he has no connection to send the message. So he thinks he sent the message, but there is nothing going on. So nobody else knows. So that's why they have the question marks over their head. So similarly in Parkinson's, your body isn't able to transmit the signal, which is why you have some of the common struggles that you face with Parkinson is like tremor, shortness of breath, bradykinesia, which is slowness of movement. You may also have things like constipation, bone health issues, malnutrition, orthostatic hypotension, and chewing and swallowing difficulties. So most of the issues that I've listed here are more nutrition related. I'm sure there are some that are more, day-to-day life activities related, but I wanted to particularly focus on the nutrition side because that is particularly where I'm more expert in. But when we talk about the treatments of Parkinson's, there's usually three that we talk about. First is the first line medication, the first line treatment, which is medication. So once you suspect yourself having Parkinson's, you will go to the doctor and the doctor will consult you and you will be put on medications. And I'm sure there's a lot of types of medications, and I'm pretty sure all of you have different types of medication as well, because depending on the severity of your Parkinson's as well, the combination of your medications would be different. And on top of medication, exercise and nutrition also play a very strong part because the medication is there to help manage the symptoms, but the exercise and the nutrition can really ground it together. Because with Parkinson's, what we want to do is we aren't able to find the cure for Parkinson's, but what we want to do is manage the signs and symptoms that we have with Parkinson's. So exercise has been proven to be very helpful with people with Parkinson's because it actually relates very well with the brain. So it can help with these dopamine releasing and helping your brain to actually stimulate the dopamine and help improve your signs and symptoms. Similarly, with nutrition, certain types of food may be more suitable for your body versus another type. So that's what I'll share today. So maybe in your opinion, how does nutrition actually help Parkinson's disease? You must be wondering, because I mean, for most people, you think, I've already consulted a doctor, they've given me medication. Shouldn't it work like that? Is there anything else that I can do? So if I would like to share with you is that nutrition is the basic, the foundation of everything. Like food is the basic of everything because everybody needs food to live every single day. So you have to learn to actually have food that can help you manage your signs and symptoms rather than choose foods that may not necessarily be the best to managing your signs and symptoms. So I'll start off with a general guideline and then I'll go more towards the common concerns. So the first recommendation that I would give for people who have PD is actually to adopt a Mediterranean diet. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the Mediterranean diet. Maybe some of you have already applied it. But what makes the Mediterranean diet different? If you have seen our Malaysian food pyramid, maybe you could think and look at roughly what is the main difference between the two. So if you can see from this food pyramid here, you could see that the very basis of it itself is you have to be more physical, more active, which is the basics. And then after that, the biggest chunk there is your whole grains, your plant oils, your healthy fats, your fruits and vegetables, and your nuts and legumes. These are things that you're supposed to have every day. So particularly something that looks a bit different than I think our Malaysian food pyramid is the specification on your nuts and legumes. Because we don't talk much about nuts and legumes in our normal food pyramid. But with the Mediterranean diet, they actually promote it because it does have anti-inflammatory effects. Similarly, in our normal food pyramid, you wouldn't see the oils actually being down there. It would usually be all the way up there. But when we put the oil in this Mediterranean diet, we are talking about healthy oils. So things like olive oil, sunflower oil, and canola oil are good options for you to include in your day-to-day versus using things like butter or ghee or margarine. Because those options are not derived from plants. Instead, they're derived from animal-based sources. So we want to go for more plant-based sources. And then as you go up, you see that your protein is actually broken into the fish and shellfish first, and then your meat and dairy products. Showing here that if possible, we want to decrease the consumption of red meats or meats and dairy products to a smaller frequency. And we would like to encourage more plant-based proteins or maybe fish and shellfish over the red meats. Why? Because particularly when it comes to these types of proteins, the red meats, they have higher saturated fat. So saturated fat is what we usually call as bad fat. So not really a healthy type of fat versus the plant oils that we mentioned earlier that are healthy fats. So fats isn't really the enemy. The idea here is that you have to choose the right types of fats because fats can also be contributing to your health. So in this case, you want to choose olive oil versus maybe choosing, more, you want to use more things that are healthy, like frequency of using olive oil versus frequency of using butter that you can see up there. And then all the way up there is your sweets, all the way up right at the top, because we don't want to encourage you to have sweets too much, because you can see the sweets is all the way up there and your whole grains are all the way down there. Both of them are actually a form of carbohydrate. Sweet is also a carbohydrate, and your rice and noodles and breads and all that is also carbohydrate. But the difference is that with the sweet stuff, it doesn't really give you the energy that your body needs. But with your rice, noodles, and other things, they are also a carbohydrate, but they give you the energy that you need. So, if possible, if you were to actually cater your diet every day, we want you to compose your meals in a way that the frequency is that daily, and in every meal, you have the basic foundation there. And then maybe weekly, you can have a few times of the fish and shellfish with a lesser frequency of the meat and poultry and dairy products. Okay. So, with that said, the second dietary intervention that we usually recommend is for people that are willing to go through the extra step to actually adopt the plant-based diet. The plant-based diet has been very popular in the last 2 years because of environmentalism factors, because people are worried about the environment, because people want to reduce their carbon footprint, because people want to save the animals. But it actually has such a big benefit when it comes to your health and well-being. Because to be very honest with you, we think when we eat vegetables, we think we've already checked the box. But it's not just about having the vegetables on the plate, but it's about the amount of vegetables that you're supposed to have on your plate. So if I were to give you an example about how much vegetables in a normal diet you're supposed to have, it is supposed to be 3 servings. And 1 serving of vegetable looks like 1 cup of vegetables. So your teacup, I don't have a teacup here, but your teacup, so 1 teacup of vegetable is 1 serving. So that will make up around half of your plate if you were eating. So if you were to eat out, let's say, if you don't cook at home, if you were to eat out, you would, like, for example, I work at a hospital, right? So at the hospital yesterday, my meal, I went and I took rice, I took chicken, and I took vegetables. So when she put the vegetables, it was literally just like checking off the box that you have vegetables, but it was the most little amount of vegetables. So I had to request for vegetables to be increased, because you need to have more vegetables in comparison to your rice and to your chicken or to your fish or to your other protein. Your vegetables should make up 50% of your plate versus your rice making 50% of the plate, which is what we usually do in Malaysia here. So if you go on a plant-based diet, you're kind of pushed towards actually increasing your vegetable intakes, because you no longer have these animal-based proteins. You no longer have these animal-based products. So you are pushed towards making choices that are mainly towards your vegetables. And the good thing about vegetables is that they comprise of so many antioxidants, so many vitamins, and so many minerals. And why it's important for PD particularly is because in PD, your body is trying to produce the dopamine, but it's not able to produce the dopamine, which is causing some form of inflammation going on. So it's triggering certain parts of your body. And this inflammation, it needs an antioxidant to come in and save the day. So you can imagine as though something is like all bruised up and red, and then these antioxidants are something that are like cooling, that come and like fix the situation there. So you need it to come and save the day. So if you have sufficient amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet, it can come in and reduce the inflammation that is going on that may be caused by your PD. All right. Okay. So now I want to talk about vitamins and minerals. Obviously, every single person needs all your vitamins, all your minerals. But in PD, there are 5 specific vitamins and minerals that I wanted to highlight that are more important. So first one is vitamin D. And these are the sources of vitamin D that you can actually see here. And most common one is the sunlight exposure. You need to spend around 15 to 20 minutes in the sun every day if possible, without sunblock, by the way. Sometimes my clients, they tell me, oh, I spend all the time in the sun, but they're wearing sunblock. So, it defeats the purpose. So you have to be out in the sun, maybe in the morning, 8:30, you can do some gardening for 20 minutes just to get that sunlight exposure. Why? Because we want to, if possible, make your bones stronger. um, your motor skills are already affected. We don't want your bones to also be affected, which limits your movement. So with vitamin D is the key vitamin to help in the absorption of your calcium. So calcium is what strengthens your bone. And to strengthen your bone, you also need vitamin D. So you have to make sure that you have enough of it. Statistics show that people with sorry, statistics show that people with PD actually tend to not have enough vitamin D. And in Malaysia also, in general, most of our population is having inadequate vitamin D. Maybe because we don't spend enough time outside, maybe because we don't actually eat enough food that have vitamin D. So if possible, try to incorporate daily 15 to 20 minutes at the very minimum under the sun without sunblock, exposing your hands, exposing your legs. That way you can stimulate vitamin D production in your body. Another type of vitamin that you need is vitamin E. Vitamin E is the golden standard when it comes to antioxidants, which is something that means golden standard for PD. So where do you get your vitamin E? As you can see here, it is actually your plant-based sources, your nuts and legumes. So it relates back to the Mediterranean diet, and why the Mediterranean diet is particularly highlighted, because it is centered around your vegetables that can provide you vitamin E, your healthy oils that can provide you vitamin E, and your nuts and legumes that can provide you vitamin E. And the next one is vitamin B1. So vitamin B1 is actually something that is additional. Something that actually most of the time, if you are having this is something that we usually have, and like our rice is sometimes fortified with B1 as well. So you will be able to already meet your B1 requirements. Some people, however, if in my clients that have PD, they struggle with having enough appetite. So when they don't have enough appetite, they may not eat so much, they lose weight, then they're not getting enough of this vitamin B1. And that's going to make it worse, because once you don't have enough of these vitamins, it worsens your symptoms. So we don't want that. We want to go back to not worsening your symptoms. So we want to increase your appetite. We want to increase the vitamins in your body. So as you can see, actually, from these three things, there's some things that are actually very similar in all these three groups. So some foods that have all vitamin D, E, and B1. So you can actually look for these ingredients. And if you can see, those ingredients are actually those that are nuts and legumes, as well as healthy oils. All right. So the other two things is, I believe some doctors actually prescribe supplementation as well for coenzyme Q10. So CoQ10 is most of the time supplemented because it has been proven in managing the signs and symptoms of PD very well. So if you are supplemented with CoQ10, most of the time you can see an improvement in your signs and symptoms. But if you wanted to get CoQ10 naturally, you can actually have it from your oily fish. So things like salmon, tuna, or even our Malaysian fish, the ikan kembung, is a good option when it comes to getting healthy fats from your fish. Other than that, organ meat such as liver is also a good option of CoQ10, and your whole grains. So simple things such as switching from your white rice or white bread to brown bread and brown rice can already give you more vitamins that are better for your PD. And the last one is beta carotene. So beta carotene is actually a specific type of antioxidant that is very helpful. So beta carotene is actually any fruits or vegetables that are the color yellow or orange. So when you go grocery shopping later on, try to spot these fruit groups that are actually yellow or orange. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ones that I listed here. It can be anything. So you can switch it up and try different yellow or orange fruits because they can provide you beta carotene. So moving on now, I'm going to touch about symptom-based. So with PD, sometimes, I think not sometimes, most of the time, my clients complain of constipation. And constipation is actually defined as having fewer than 3 bowel movements per week. And it could be because of several reasons. It could be because your PD is affecting the signal to your colon. So there's not enough peristalsis, so there's no movement going on. So you don't feel the urge to go to the toilet. It could be because your PD medication side effects is that your bowel movement doesn't become regular. It makes you have constipation. It could also be because your diet is lacking in vegetables, lacking in fiber, lacking in fluid. And lastly, I forgot to put it in here, but it could also be because you're not moving enough. Because movement in your body could encourage more peristalsis. So the peristalsis will help your colon and help give you the urge to go to the bathroom. So if you have constipation, my suggestion is to increase your fruits and vegetable intake. So when I do a meal plan for my clients, what I do is for your breakfast, try to include vegetables. So let's say you have a sandwich for your breakfast, add on like lettuce, cucumber, tomato. That's a very easy way to add fiber. If you don't want to eat sandwich, you can also have, for example, some people may have oats. They may like oats. So with oats, it wouldn't make sense to add vegetables. So you can add fruits instead. So that's where you add your fruit serving. So most of the time, how I plan is that your three main meals have vegetables in them. So your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner have vegetables in them. And remember how much one serving of vegetable is? It is 1 teacup full. So that means 1 teacup at breakfast, 1 teacup at lunch, and 1 teacup at dinner. So if you ask me, oh, but I don't really have vegetables during breakfast, it's a bit difficult for me because it doesn't match with whatever food that I'm having. It's okay. So compensate by during lunch having 1.5 teacup of vegetable and dinner having 1.5 teacup. So then you'll ask me, when do I take fruits then? Do I take it with my main meals or when do I take it? So most of the time, what I do is I give you breakfast at 8 to 9, and then I will tell you to have your fruits at around 10 to 11. And then you would have another meal, your lunch, around 1 to 2. And then your afternoon snack to have another fruit, which is around 3 to 4 maybe. And then your dinner around 6:30 to 7:30 where you have your vegetable. So you can see here that during the main meals, you have your vegetables and during your snacks, you have your fruits. That way, it's easy ways to increase your fiber. In a day, you need 30 to 40 grams of fiber. And if you meet these 2 servings of fruits and 3 servings of vegetable a day, it is meeting the very basic requirements. So if you add on to it by switching from white rice to brown rice, it adds more fiber and helps with your constipation. Another thing is increasing fluid intake. So I want to put a disclaimer here. So just this talk is specifically for PD, but you may have other conditions going on as well. So you may have something going on with your heart or something else. So if you have a fluid restriction, please go back and look at your fluid restriction. But if you have no fluid restriction, then try to have a minimum of 2 liters. And you can also do that per hour and divide how many liters. If you're a person that doesn't like water so much, you can divide it. But if possible, we want to encourage at least 2 liters because your body needs that to make sure that your bowel movement is smoother. If not, with constipation, it's not just about the regularity of your bowel, but we are scared that it could lead to hemorrhoids or making it worse. So we don't want that. We don't want you to actually, stress yourself out to go to the bathroom. So try to increase your water intake. And the third thing is something that I've mentioned just now is increasing your body movement. It doesn't have to be this vigorous exercise that everybody is doing these days. It can be simple things that you like to do, gardening. It could be just walking around your housing area, maybe going up and down the stairs, whatever is easy for you. But try to get your body moving approximately 30 minutes every single day. What we're trying to aim for is a minimum of 150 minutes per week, which is 30 minutes for 5 days a week. So with this movement, you're going to push your colon and whatever, like something that is stuck there will be moving better. All right. So this is for constipation. Moving on to bone health. And I said just now that with PD, you are more likely to have lower bone mineral density. So what that means is that you have a higher tendency of getting things like osteoporosis, or if you fall, you may have a fracture more easily. And we don't want that. We don't want to add on to it. So what I would recommend is for your bone health is to ensure you have adequate vitamin D. So as mentioned earlier, vitamin D is through your sun exposure and through your diet. Have adequate calcium intake. So your calcium intake, if you're avoiding dairy products, if some of you are lactose intolerant and dairy is not suitable for you, then what you can do is you may talk to your doctor and they may supplement you with some calcium products. All right. Okay. And the third one is adequate magnesium intake. So magnesium is also something very interesting. So if you have sweet cravings all the time, magnesium could be something that you're deficient in actually. So magnesium, how it presents in your body is if you're not having enough of it, it could make you feel maybe tendency to have more chocolates and sweet. It could obviously on your bones, it will also make your bone look like the right hand side, the one that's very sick and very tired, right? So we want to have enough magnesium, and you can get that from your diet through broccoli, green vegetables, dried beans, and peas, and as well as whole grains. So moving on to malnutrition, based on the form that I saw, I see that most of you here are actually in the normal BMI category, so that's good. But malnutrition is not just about whether you are in the normal BMI category now. It's about over the past few years, have you lost weight significantly? Have you lost muscle? Have you lost the ability to do certain things? Because if that's so, that is not a good indicator, because if you are malnourished, it raises the risk for other illnesses. It raises the risk for your PD to get worse faster. So you may be thinking, why is it that I'm eating my medications but my PD is not getting better? So it could be because you're not eating adequately. So if you are struggling with your eating, with your eating pattern, I mean, it's easy for me to write here to eat adequate amounts that increase your appetite, but you know the struggle that you're facing. So personally, what I do is this is a more one-to-one basis kind of thing, because everybody has their own struggle when it comes to eating. It could be because you don't like the food, or maybe because it's the smell, or because of the taste, or because you're tired to chew. So depending on that, usually with a dietitian, they will work together with you to come up with strategies. I'm not sure if any of you have ever had an encounter with a one-to-one personal dietitian consultations, but what we usually do is we will look at whatever is your common struggles, and we give you solutions that can essentially help you feel better and meet that goal. All right. So next thing is orthostatic hypotension. So I'm not sure, has anybody here experienced a drop in blood pressure upon standing? So that means when you stand up too fast, you feel like, oh, you feel very lightheaded. You feel like the tendency to actually, like you may fall down. So this happens in actually 50% of the people with PD. And what we try to encourage you to do is to avoid large meals. Smaller, frequent meals, which is why I plan the 5 meals per day, is more suitable because your body needs a regular amount of food over a period of time and it needs time to digest. So smaller, frequent meals may be more suitable. And hypotension could also be because you may not, for people who, they are decreasing in their appetite, so they're not eating enough, they could also not have enough sodium or enough salt in their diet. So they're not getting this particular nutrient, which makes them to have hypotension versus hypertension, which is high blood pressure that a lot of people have. So you can add a little bit of salt in whatever food that you're having if you see that you're having this lightheadedness very often. Another thing, it goes back to increasing your fluid intake, as well as if you have alcohol, to decrease the frequency of having your alcohol. All right. And okay. So this is the last one when it comes to the signs and symptom base is, I think a lot of you complain about the feeling of, like maybe shortness of breath or choking feeling, or maybe it's difficult for you to chew or swallow. So with PD, because it affects the movement, maybe the peristalsis, you may be struggling to consume your food. So the first thing, if you are facing this, is to consult your doctor and speech pathologist, because they will have a further look at what is actually causing it. It could be a medication, it could be a certain type of food. So they have to really look further into it. Don't take it very lightly and be like, oh, it's because my PD, I feel this way, or it's very common and so on. No, talk to a doctor, talk to a speech pathologist. They will then give you the best way to avoid it. But you could also discuss with a dietitian on a texture modified diet to increase the palatability of your foods. So texture modified diets mean is that sometimes with people with PD, it's very difficult for you to chew because it gets very tiring to constantly do that. So we try to ease the texture of the food. So for example, sometimes if you don't feel well, you eat porridge. So porridge is a texture modified diet. You change it from rice particles to actually softer particles. So depending on how much you can tolerate, we will then modify the texture of your diet, whether it should be mashed, whether it could be minced, so I want you to look closely. If you have that feeling of shortness of breath, or if you have that feeling of choking, what did you eat? And note it down if possible. How frequent do you have it? And we can look at the pattern. It could be because of a specific type of food. It could be because the texture of the food. It could be because the food is too dry. So we would tell you, instead of having just rice with your whatever protein and vegetable, we will ask you to always add on soup, or to make your rice to be softer, or to have your noodles cooked longer, because that way it will make it easier for you to eat it. So this is what it comes to when we talk about texture modified diets. So now, um, I've been asked to talk about protein specifically because I think with PD, you guys are on some, not all of you, depending on your severity, you are put on a medication called levodopa or Sinemet. I'm not sure if you know the name of your medication, but Sinemet. So not everybody is on that. It depends on the severity of your PD, but the doctor may prescribe that. And this particular medication actually competes with protein. So that means is, if you have protein and you have your Sinemet at the same time, or maybe not too much of a difference in time, it could give you other forms of signs and symptoms. It could give you crazy headaches. It could give you sudden feels like your body's not working right. It could give you the feel like your medication is not working so well. So usually what we recommend is to take your medication, your levodopa or Sinemet, 30 minutes prior to meals or 60 minutes after your meals, to make sure that whatever protein is in your meal is not interrupting the efficiency of your medication. But in the case that for some people, even when they do this, they have the feeling of shortness of breath after they eat. They have the feeling of like choking after they eat. And it could be because this competition going on between your medication and the food that you're eating. So what we do is we will ask you to discuss with your dietitian about protein intake redistribution. So what this means is we will actually replan your diet to make sure that you may not have protein in the morning. So you have this medication most of the time in the morning. So we don't want to interrupt the medication's efficiency. We will change it so that you have it more towards the evening. So the medication has worked to its full capacity. Then you have the protein. So there is no competition going on. So we will plan, but you still need protein to keep you feeling full. If not, then you will struggle throughout the whole day looking for food, munching on things, which is defeating the purpose then, because you want to be healthy. So what we try to do is we give you small quantities of protein, and small quantities of protein could be just from um, adding a little bit of protein here or reducing protein there. But most of the time we remove any meats or fish that you have in the morning, and we try to reallocate it and make you have a bigger dinner, or make you have a later lunch and a later dinner, to make sure that it doesn't interrupt with the function of your cinnamon. But this is dependent on the individuals itself, which is why you don't see me actually doing the graphs here that tell you when exactly you should have protein, when exactly you should take your medication, because it's dependent on the medication, and it is dependent on whether you have these signs and symptoms. For most people, the 30 minutes prior and 60 minutes prior works, but for some people it does not. All right, so this brings me to the nutrition summary of this overall. So my summary, I like to, if possible, for you to consult a dietitian for a tailored and personalized plan. So what this means is that you talk to a dietitian about your struggles. It doesn't have to be, like there are so many dietitian programs out there. It doesn't have to be months of programs. Obviously, with months of programs, you get a lot more, but it could just be a one-off consultation so you understand whether what you're eating is right for you, and if there is any way that you could best tailor it. Because what we do is we will make sure that whatever you have eaten is suitable for you particularly, because nobody here, and I'm sure every single person on this call, nobody here has the same food or like the same eating pattern or the same environment. So we try to tailor it and personalize it. Second thing is, we want you to focus, if because I shared so much, I want you to remember one thing, to focus on the overall balance of your meals. Make sure that each of your meals composes of a fiber component, which are fruits or vegetables, fruits and vegetables. to have a protein component. So if people with levodopa, you have to learn about when you should have your protein. If you feel that your cinnamon or your levodopa is actually interrupting you and making you have that shortness of breath, and you may find it difficult first to actually talk to a dietitian and you want to try it on your own, my advice is maybe start the first day removing any form of protein from your breakfast and moving it to lunch and dinner. See if it helps with your signs and symptoms. If it does, then you can continue doing that. So no protein during your breakfast and just having it during lunch and dinner. If it does not, then I would still suggest you to talk to a dietitian because maybe there is something else triggering it. So another thing is your carbohydrate, ensuring that you have enough rice. Don't think because you have PD you should not have rice. Sometimes that's also something that a lot of people think, oh, I want to eat healthy, so I cannot have rice, I cannot have this. But actually you need rice, especially for you guys, because you need that energy. And rice is a staple. It's not just rice, obviously. Rice, noodles, bread, they are a staple form of energy for your body. So you have to have it in your main meals, and incorporate healthy fats and switch out your butter or your margarine and change it to, if possible, to blended oils. So there are certain brands out there in the market that write blended oil. So if you go shopping, grocery shopping, look for that word, blended oil, because that is the best option of oil out there. And also remember your water intake. Next, my reminder is to include light exercises daily. You know, if you have friends here, I mean, you have a big community here. Maybe you guys could join in every day and do some YouTube exercises together, or if you want to do it at home with your family, but try to incorporate 20 to 30 minutes of exercise every day because it will help with your PD. It will help with your dopamine regulation as well. Um, and then the last one is to talk to a doctor or dietitian to help in your supplementation of your vitamins and minerals. So if, let's say, any of the vitamins and minerals that I've shared earlier, you feel that, oh, it's difficult for me to eat these types of food, or you feel like maybe I want to take these supplements, don't just go up to the pharmacy and straight away buy, oh, this dietitian Hasanah told me I need these 5 things for my PD, so I go to the pharmacy and buy all these 5 things. Don't do that. Go and consult your doctor, and maybe the doctor can give you the best form, because not all form of supplements works the same way, you know. So look for the best form of supplement out there by discussing with your doctor, and they will give you some recommendations, so that way you know whether you need vitamin D or not, whether you need vitamin B or not, and they will give you the best type. And I think that is all that I have to share today from me. If you would like to contact me personally and stay in touch, you could contact me via email or Instagram or TikTok. I'm not sure if you guys use all of that platforms. My website is currently under construction because it's a new year. I'm revamping my website, so it's not there yet. But if, let's say, you want to you want to be in touch, or you want to have a one-off consultation, I also do consultations with clients, and I also have a very close client of mine who has PD. So you can just drop me an email and say, I want to ask you if I want to do a consultation, how it is, and so on. Or if you wanted to ask me any advice, feel free to just drop me a message, and I will reply my very best to you. All right, then I think back to the MCs. Thank you so much, and I hope this has been beneficial for all of you.